Soaring into the nighttime sky above the Florida coast on September 25, 1997, the STS-86 crew of the Space Shuttle Atlantis faced unprecedented concern about the soundness of the space station to which they would fly, and to which they would deliver one of their fellow crewmates for an extended stay. Braced by the reassurances of those NASA officials who had examined a series of disturbing occurrences at the Russian space station Mir, and making a leap of faith in the judgment and capability of their counterparts in the Russian Space Agency, STS-86 Commander James Weatherby led his crew into space that evening with the goal of docking at Mir 2 days later. By the fall of 1997, Mir had been the jewel of the Russian space program for more than a decade. Since its launch on February 20, 1986, Mir had outlived the totalitarian regime responsible for its creation, to become a symbol of the new spirit of cooperation between Russia and the United States. STS-86 was the seventh shuttle mission to include a docking between a U.S. shuttle and the Russian space station. The dockings were part of a program of cooperative human spaceflight, which also included a series of long-duration visits to Mir by U.S. astronauts. The effort ultimately led to a string of 907 days of continuous American presence aboard the Russian station. In the months immediately preceding the launch of STS-86, Mir had experienced a series of troubling mishaps during the stay of U.S. astronaut Jerry Leininger and his successor aboard the station, Michael Foale. During Leininger's stay, the orbital outpost had experienced a fire, several faults in its environmental control systems, an electrical outage, and a failure of the station's attitude control system. Foale, meanwhile, had been aboard during an accident in which an unmanned Russian cargo supply craft had collided with Mir, forcing the crew to seal off a portion of the station to prevent the life-sustaining atmosphere within the rest of their quarters from escaping into space. Foale would leave Mir and return to Earth aboard Atlantis at the conclusion of STS-86, while his fellow NASA astronaut David Wolf would take his place at Mir. Astronaut Wendy Lawrence had originally been chosen to be the next American to serve aboard Mir, but she was replaced by Wolf when it was discovered that she was not large enough to wear the Russian Orlan spacesuit. The ability to fit the suit was a necessity for the American crew member who would serve as a backup for the Russian spacewalkers who would survey the damage caused by the collision that had occurred during Foale's stay. Despite the disappointment of her altered mission, Lawrence flew with Wolf on his trip to the space station and returned with Foale and her other STS-86 crewmates when Atlantis returned to Earth on October 6, 1997. STS-86 was Lawrence's second spaceflight, and she would make 2 more trips into the heavens, including a return to Mir during the final Shuttle Mir docking mission in 1998. David Wolf served at Mir for 119 days, conducting a program of scientific research, and, in January of 1998, wearing a Russian Orlan spacesuit, he made a spacewalk of nearly 4 hours. Mir would continue its journey in orbit for another 3.5 years, accommodating a total of 40 Russian cosmonauts, 18 international visitors, and 7 U.S. astronauts, before it was deorbited on March 23, 2001. Having admirably faced down the fears of any larger catastrophe following the disturbing events of the first 9 months of 1997, and ultimately having lived up to the promise of international cooperation in the exploration of space.